Hello and welcome to the third Olympus iSpeed Labs. My name's Chris Robinson and today I'd like to show you some application video and we'll talk through the camera settings to help you get that perfect high-speed video shot. So why don't we start with automotive testing? This footage was given to us by a customer of ours called Microsys who make airbag test cells. We recorded this clip with an iSpeed 3 running at 2000 frames a second and a 150 microsecond shutter. There's about 5 kilowatts of light in this test cell and we're looking for even inflation of the airbag, no tearing and no escaping of gas. This is a vehicle impact test video that was recorded on an outside test range. We recorded this using an iSpeed TR at 1000 frames a second with a 200 microsecond shutter. The illumination is provided by daylight, so we had to use the iSpeed's daylight white balance facility. It's scary because the lorry was only doing 30 miles an hour and the driver wasn't wearing a seatbelt. So let's look at a sled test done by the McLaren Formula 1 team. We recorded this with an iSpeed 3 running at 1000 frames a second with a ×5 shutter. We took this footage in an internal safety cell, so there's a lot of light here. The nose cone is designed to crumple, to save the driver from the G-forces of an accident. I'd like to show you a clip that we took with the Transport Research Laboratories in the UK while looking at child safety in cars. We took this clip using an iSpeed 3 at 1000 frames a second with a ×2 shutter in an internal safety cell. Let's look at the clip. So this is what happens if your child wears their seatbelt correctly during an impact. The child is restrained safely. Let's look at what happens if the child puts the seatbelt under their arm, as many children do because it's more comfortable. And you can see what happens here for yourself. So let's look at another shot from the Transport Research Labs. This time we're testing a pedestrian safety barrier. We recorded this using an iSpeed TR at 500 frames a second with a ×1 shutter using natural daylight. Because we were only using 500 frames a second, we were able to close the iris right down so that we get a really good depth of field in the shot. Let's look at some ballistics and rocket testing. This clip is forensic analysis of a machine gun firing. We took this with an iSpeed 3 running at 20,000 frames a second with a 1 microsecond shutter. We were in a firing range, so we had 10,000 watts of light. And we used a monochrome iSpeed because of its enhanced sensitivity. Olympus is proud to support the Bloodhound SSC team in its attempt to create the fastest car in the world. This is footage from the first ever rocket test. We took this with a number of iSpeed 3s running at 500 frames per second with a ×1 shutter. There wasn't much light in the test cell, but the illumination from the rocket plume was perfectly adequate. There were 8 iSpeed 3 cameras in this, and all 8 of them survived and delivered video. This footage has been provided by Madico, who make explosive-proof glass. We took this using an iSpeed 3 at 2000 frames a second with a 500 microsecond shutter. It was taken outside, so we used natural daylight, but it's always difficult to balance the daylight against the illumination from the test explosive. This is a material science clip taken at a welding research institution. To get this clip, we used an iSpeed TR monochrome running at 5000 and 10,000 frames a second. The illumination for this clip was provided by a high-power infrared laser, and we put a visible cut filter in front of the camera to block visible light so that we could see through the weld plume and into the weld pool, and we could have a look at the droplet formation. This is an example taken from the world of microscopy. We used an Olympus microscope to take this footage, using an iSpeed 3 at 1000 frames a second with a ×1 shutter. We used the microscope's internal LED light source to capture this footage, and we used a monochrome iSpeed to take advantage of its enhanced sensitivity. Let's have a look at a couple of broadcast shots. Broadcasting is wide and varied, but this shot was given to us by a couple of award-winning wildlife photographers. They used an iSpeed 3 running at 1000 frames a second with a ×1 shutter to record this snowy owl. I'd like to show you a clip to prove how seriously we at Olympus take our work. We often have schools and colleges visiting the facility, and during the tour we find that the students enjoy this kind of clip. To get this, we used an iSpeed 3 running at 1000 frames a second with a ×3 shutter, and we used two 1000 watt floodlights to illuminate me. And yes, it did hurt. So today I've shown you a number of videos that were shared with us by our customers to illustrate the applications of high-speed video and to show you the settings that you need to take that perfect high-speed shot. Thank you very much indeed for watching, and why don't you join me for the next iSpeed Labs?